Good afternoon, boys and girls. I'm Dan. Little shop update on the 701. Now that spring's here appears and the weather's gotten nicer, why I'm starting to make forward progress again. Had the wings and the tail feathers hung behind me all winter long. Now the tail feathers are back on the fuselage. They're clecoed in place, and the wings are in the wing rack. They're sitting outside now. So we've got the bench cleared off, and we're ready to go back to work a little bit. So I thought I'd just give you a quick little update about what's going on at this point in time. I don't have a whole lot of forward progress, although we've had a lot of planning going on with it. So I just thought I'd cover some of the things that are happening here in the next few weeks, and it also helps me organize my plan of attack here, because after you've been away from a project for a while, it takes a little bit to get back into the swing of things and figure out where you left off. So what I've got going on, landing gear is the blanks. The edges are all rounded on it, and it's almost ready to be formed. I've got to smooth the edges where we've radiused them a little bit, but that'll happen. I'm not sure my little press is heavy enough to form those. I've got the material to build my form tools for that and everything, but I don't know if I'm going to have enough press horsepower to do that. So that may be another project down the road. I don't know. I'm going to set it up with the intent that I can bend them here, but we'll see if my press will do it or if we have to do something else. Fuel tanks. I'd previously shown the formed fuel tanks and how I put the beads along the edges, and the main parts of the fuel tanks are tack welded together, and I started forming the ends and fitting them. I've still got to finish cutting the ends out and forming them for the last 3 tanks, and I'll probably do that later today, at least get the blanks cut out for that. And I'm going to weld AN bungs into the end of them. If you saw my little gascolator build video, and I'll put a card up here someplace so you can go and look at that if you haven't seen it already, I built my own, or turned my own AN fittings to go in there. I'm going to do the same thing with the fuel tanks, since I'm going to use AN fittings and AN hoses on all my fuel system. So rather than welding a bung into the fuel tank and then threading an AN fitting into it, I'm just going to eliminate that extra connection, and we'll turn some AN fittings, and I'll just weld them permanently into the fuel tank. So that does away with one connection and one possible source of leak. I think that's going to be a good solution for that. Drain plugs, I'll weld a bung in. I've got to turn some bungs for those, but that'll be a standard drain valve. So we'll just weld a bung in the proper size for that. The fuel tank senders, I previously added in the description below which fuel tank senders I was going to use, and I'll link them down below too. I'm going to recess those into the top of the fuel tank so that they're recessed. I don't have to worry. I'll put an access panel in the top wing skin to be able to access those if I need to, but I'll dimple them down in, and we'll form a flange very similar to the flanging dies, except they'll have a flat ring recessed down in there so that they can screw in place and be sealed and not protrude above the top of the tank. So I'll have to order those fuel senders yet, and then I'll build a appropriate flanging die to do that, so I can cut them with a hole saw and then just flange the recess down in there. I think that'll work real well for those. And fuel filler caps, I'll have to weld them in place too. I've got to order them. So I'll have to get the fuel tanks done here in the next few weeks so that I can hopefully finish up my wings. I've still got to skin one wing. It's partially done. As far as metalworking, I've got to finish out one wing, or the main part of one wing. I've got to skin it. The other wing's pretty well done. I've still got to lay out the access panels for it and install the access rings and all that. And there again, I previously showed how I was building access panels or access covers, and I'll try and link that up above too. So I've got to get those done so that we can install the wing tanks, and I'm starting thinking about the wiring for that and that type of thing. So that's in the works. Lots of little things still to go on the fuselage, the pulleys for the rudder cables, and finish up the control surfaces and that type of thing. I've got to cover the flaperons. I've got to skin them yet, and I think I've got one slat yet to skin, and then those will pretty well be taken care of. It's about time to start building the strut fittings and everything for on the wings. So I've got to order material for those. Engine mounts, I started laying out the engine mount. Still have to lay out and weld up the oil pan and the top cover. I've got a top cover that actually had already been formed when I bought my engine cores from my engines were a conversion that had already been started. So somebody had built a top cover for on the engine. I don't know that I'm going to use that one or not, but it's already laid out and drilled for for a pattern, so we may or may not use it. The fifth bearing is still in progress. I haven't really done anything that I haven't showed already in the video for that. We're down to the machining of that. I don't anticipate any problems there. I've got the seal to go back in there. I have to order the bearings yet to or the bearing to go in it, and we're just down to machining on that. I spent a lot of time machining here lately, but it's been on my little Atlas production lathe project, so I've trying to get the majority of it out of the way right now, so I haven't really felt like machining things like the fifth bearing and stuff, but that will be coming along. The only other thing I've been working on has been my bubble doors, and for my bubble doors last fall I'd laid out the patterns for that, or the initial patterns, with the intent that I was going to get those doors formed sometime this year. My original intent was to make a full bubble like the early Zenith bubble doors were. My set of plans came with the early style doors that had the aluminum skin on the bottom and the, I think it's 1/2 inch aluminum tubing frame underneath that skin, and then just the top was basically a flat panel. I was originally going to blow full bubble doors. I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to build something a little more in line with what Zenith is producing now that has a frame around that door. I've got a couple ideas for that frame, and the spring mechanism, the opening mechanism for them. I think I've got a couple of ideas that may be kind of unique to the whole situation. I think I'm going to try them out and see what happens, and we'll see how we go with that. I'll show a little more of that once we get into that part of the project a little bit more, and go from there. But that's pretty much all I've really got to share with you. I just wanted to give you a little overview. I haven't really put out anything on the 701 here for the last, well, few weeks type of thing, and if I have, it's been on the fifth bearing a little bit. So I wanted to quickly give you an update. We've got the shop pretty well cleaned up, ready to go again, and the weather's getting nice enough now, and now that we've got the wings and the tail feathers are not hanging over the bench now, why we've got full access to that. So I think we're going to get started back on this project again and see how far we can get. So anyway, if you find these helpful, why go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or suggestions, leave them in the comment section for me below. And thanks for taking the time to watch.